I think it's fair to say that storytelling is ancient. We know that it started to exist as soon as men were able to communicate. Then through gossiping and sharing the tales of our fears, it evolved. But nobody knows who told the first story. I like to imagine that it was told by one of our fearless ancestors, sitting in a gloomy cave around a flickering fire, sharing the tale of how he killed the first lion. My father told me that when he was a child, all the children in his village would come around the fire next to the elder and listen as they shared their stories. Just like hundreds of years before, when old tribes and civilization used to do the same. Just like when the first man shared his story. For thousands of years, oral tradition has been the way of sharing our story and preserving his story. Now, through the written words and other medium, we have countless ways to do so. But because we have so many different ways and medium to share our stories, it can sometimes feel overwhelming to decide which one to choose. And with so many options, you might wonder, how can you find the one that is the best for you? Growing up, while others used to say, do what you love, my parents always told me, learn to love what you do, and one day you'll end up doing what you love. I didn't understand this sentence when I was a child, but now I realize what it means. I think that they didn't want me to be closed-minded to unknown experiences. It was a way for them to encourage me to challenge myself, to try new things, and explore skills that may one day become my passion. Because I make movies, some may call me a videographer. Others might think that I always loved the idea of editing movies. But just like many of you, I'm very impatient. So I would have never imagined that I would be sitting here in front of a computer, editing videos for hours. Just thinking of it was a nightmare. But it's from watching other storytellers on YouTube that I became inspired to try. And from remembering that guiding principle, love what you do, and one day you'll end up doing what you love. Sometimes your desire of an end goal outweighed your aversion of the process of achieving that goal.
Couple more steps to go.
Although I was convinced that I would hate editing, I knew that I wanted to share stories. When I made my first movie, it's during the editing process that I realized that I had found a new passion. To this day, it's still hard to believe that what I was fearing the most is what led me to my passion. A passion I never knew I had. Remember, I wasn't doing something I loved, but somehow it led me to it. Think about that for a second. If I was always just focusing on doing what I love, I would have avoided editing and therefore making movies. I wouldn't have known that I like videography. I would have probably never made this video you're watching, and I would have missed on an opportunity to do what I love. When I wrote my first book, I enjoyed the process so much that whenever someone will ask me, what do you plan to do when you retire? I will always answer, writing. I thought that writing was my medium of choice. But it's experimenting beyond what I was comfortable with that made me realize that my desire to share stories wasn't limited to a single medium. And through that, I discovered my true passion, storytelling. You see, storytelling is not speaking, writing, or filming. It's much more than that. It's sharing your story the way you want to share it.
What's up YouTube? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Richardson, Dackam.
If you always live within the limit of your comfort zone, you will always live within those boundaries.
This is it. Thanks for
Back when my father was a little child, those elders were sharing stories through the oral tradition. Then when my father decided to share his story, his medium of choice was writing. So I learned stories about my ancestor, not just through oral stories like my father, but also from reading a book that my father wrote about the previous generations. Today I'm sharing my story through filmmaking, but I will always be willing to experiment. If you're among those that are still looking for a medium or a way to share your story, I encourage you to go outside of your comfort zone and experiment. Because if you want to find your true calling, you should be willing to do more than just doing what you love.